The Rise of Atomic Diplomacy by Madeline Serackman, Lana Leiter, and Mary Grace Ricci. Part 1. The Race to the First Nuclear Weapon. During World War II, the United States heard of rumors stating that Germany was undergoing testing to create the world's first nuclear weapon. In 1940, before entering the war, the United States government funded their own nuclear weapons project known as the Manhattan Project. J. Robert Oppenheimer led his fellow scientists in New Mexico on this operation. The first successful test of an atomic device, a plutonium bomb, occurred on July 16, 1945, after a few years of testing. This became known as the Trinity test. This accomplishment came after Germany's defeat in Europe. However, America was still heavily at war against the unrelenting Japanese. Since the United States had the first success with atomic devices, President Harry Truman decided to use this accomplishment against Japan. This became known as atomic diplomacy. Atomic diplomacy is a nation's threat to use nuclear weapons in order to achieve diplomatic and foreign war. Despite the nuclear threat, Japan persevered and inflicted casualties upon the Allied soldiers that numbered nearly half of those gained in 3 years of war in the Pacific. The United States then proposed the Potsdam Declaration, demanding Japan's immediate surrender. If they refused to comply, the United States threatened prompt and utter destruction upon Japan. When Japan did not surrender, President Truman decided to drop the bomb to save American lives. Many believe that dropping the bomb would also put the United States at a dominant position post-war. On August 6, 1945, the first bomb, also known as the Little Boy, was dropped on the city of Hiroshima, killing 80,000 people instantly. Many more died after the bomb was dropped due to the deadly radiation they were exposed to. It is said up to 135,000 people died in Hiroshima. The Little Boy did not prompt immediate surrender from Japan. To end the war for good, 3 days later, the Fat Man was dropped on the city of Nagasaki, killing up to 80,000 people in total. Then, the Japanese Emperor Hirohito, surrendered on August 15th through a radio broadcast, and the official surrender occurred on September 2nd. After World War II, warfare was changed forever. The United States had not only won the war, but also asserted their dominance as a powerhouse nation worldwide. No country felt safe without nuclear weapons of their own, and it became every country's goal to create their own atomic devices.
Part 2. Atomic Diplomacy in the Cold War. The theme of atomic diplomacy carried into the Cold War with the United States and the Soviet Union. After World War II, Germany's capital, Berlin, was split into East and West Berlin. West Berlin was occupied by the Soviets, who were instilling their communist views into their newly gained territory. The planes that carried the original atomic bombs were called B-29 bombers. President Harry Truman, along with many Americans, viewed the communist Soviets as threats to democracy. President Truman then ordered B-29 bombers to fly to an American airbase in Berlin. He used atomic diplomacy in hopes of instilling fear into the Soviets so that they would back down. However, his plan failed. Truman, still wanting to help the Germans under the harsh treatment of the Soviets, led the Berlin airlift with other Western allies. They flew over West Berlin and dropped humanitarian supplies such as medicine and food. At the start of the Korean War in 1950, the Soviets saw yet again another opportunity to spread their communist ideas. Truman wanted to shut them down again and ordered B-29 bombers to be flown to threaten the Soviet Union to uphold the integrity of democracy in that area. By the end of the Korean War, President Dwight D. Eisenhower was sworn into office. When peace talks were negotiated, President Eisenhower was tempted with the idea of using atomic diplomacy to have the upper hand in the peace treaties, but opted not to. In years to come, the most dangerous example of atomic diplomacy dawned upon the United States. The Soviets had finally gotten their chance at revenge in the Cuban Missile Crisis. President John F. Kennedy sent in American soldiers to Cuba in hopes of overthrowing the communist regime led by Fidel Castro. Their failed attempt prompted Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet leader, to come to an agreement with Fidel Castro to put Soviet missiles in Cuba to avoid future invasion. The United States were awestruck when flooded with the news of 28 Soviet bombers in Cuba and the possibility of more. President Kennedy issued a national warning to warn the American public of the Cuban threat. The Soviets proved to be relentless when on October 14th, photography of launching sites were taken. Kennedy then was faced with a huge decision on how to proceed with the nuclear threat. He sent a letter to Nikita Khrushchev stating that the United States would not tolerate the threat of any weapons in Cuba and demanded that all weapons be sent back to the Soviet Union. After much negotiating, Kennedy and Khrushchev finally came to an agreement. If the Soviets were to take their missiles from Cuba, the United States would have to remove their missiles from Italy and Turkey and not invade Cuba unless invoked. While Kennedy did not want this, he had no other choice. Each of the 13 days of the missile crisis were abhorrent for both the Soviets and the Americans. Atomic diplomacy was much more effective when only one country held the power of the weapons. However, as shown in the Cuban Missile Crisis, when two countries have the threat of dropping a nuclear device, either country is willing to make a move because of MAD. This acronym, MAD, or MAD, stands for Mutually Assured Destruction and is the reason why nuclear weapons have not been dropped since World War II. MAD also played a role in the Vietnam War when President Richard Nixon had considered threatening nuclear warfare on Vietnam. His idea was immediately shut down because the Soviets had nuclear devices of their own. If one country dropped a bomb on the other country would quickly bomb them back. Not only will countries fire back with nuclear devices of their own, but the people in power will lose respect of their citizens. There has always been debate about nuclear weapons, even since their prospective involvement in world affairs. However, the United States had no choice as the Germans were making their own in World War II. According from a poll from Gallup, between August 10th to August 15th in 1945, 85% of Americans approved of dropping the bombs, while only 10% disapproved and 5% did not have a preferred side. Another poll was done in July 25th to July 28th in 2005, where only 57% of Americans approved of the bombing and a 38% disapproved, and again 5% had no feelings. As time progresses, statistics show that more people do not approve of dropping the atomic bombs in World War II.
Part 3. Modern-day nuclear warfare. While most countries own some type of nuclear device, the race to nuclear development has not ceased to this day, despite efforts to reduce nuclear weaponry worldwide. As stated in the article, Atomic Weapons More Powerful 75 Years After Hiroshima, the United States, Great Britain, Russia, France, China, India, North Korea, Israel, and Pakistan all entered 2020 with about 13,400 atomic weapons. But exact numbers are unsure as countries are hesitant to release information on their nuclear artillery. In 2019, the United States removed itself from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Weapons Treaty they made with Russia on June 1, 1988. This treaty prevented ground-based missiles from being developed with a 500 to 5,500 firing range. The United States left this treaty because they claimed Russia broke the treaty. Of course, Russia denied all accusations, but this did not persuade the United States to change their minds. Other competitors such as China, North Korea, Pakistan, and India also have to keep the United States on their toes. It is thought that China is undergoing a huge enlargement of their nuclear weaponry along with Pakistan and India. The growth of their atomic weaponry cancels out the fact that the United States and Russia are actively taking apart retired weapons. As a result, there is far to little no success diminishing the world's total quantity of nuclear weapons. Nuclear power is even stronger than it was in World War II. In this day and age, dropping an atomic bomb means more than death and destruction. It could potentially lead to the next World War.